A 67-year-old woman walked into her doctor's office last year for a routine checkup. She wasn't sick, she wasn't in pain, she hadn't noticed anything unusual, but when her blood work came back, her doctor sat her down and told her something that shook her. Her kidneys were working at less than half their normal capacity, and she had no idea. That story isn't rare, it's shockingly common, and what's even more surprising is what researchers are now finding about two ingredients most people already have in their kitchen. Here's what most people don't realize about their kidneys. These two small organs, each about the size of your fist, filter roughly half a cup of blood every single minute, every minute. They remove waste, balance your minerals, regulate your blood pressure, and even help produce the red blood cells that carry oxygen through your body. And yet, we almost never think about them. We worry about our hearts. We think about our joints. We watch our blood sugar, but the kidneys, they stay invisible until they can't anymore. And that's the problem, because kidney disease is what doctors call a silent condition. It doesn't announce itself the way a heart attack does. It doesn't give you the sharp warning that a broken bone gives. Instead, it creeps, slowly, year after year, and by the time you start noticing something feels off, a significant amount of damage may already be done. Now, if you're over 60, here's what you need to know. Your kidneys naturally lose about 10% of their filtering power with every decade after your 40s. That's just normal aging. But when you add high blood pressure on top of that, or type 2 diabetes, or years of taking over-the-counter painkillers, that decline speeds up dramatically. And suddenly, you're not dealing with normal aging anymore. You're dealing with a kidney that's struggling. So the real question becomes, is there anything you can do about it? Something simple, something accessible, something that doesn't require a prescription? And that's where this gets really interesting, because researchers have been studying two very specific natural ingredients, and what they've found is turning heads in the medical community. The reveal, and it's not what you expect. Now, when you saw the title of this video, you probably tried to guess what this oil might be. Coconut oil? Fish oil? Maybe castor oil? And I wouldn't blame you for guessing any of those. But the oil that's showing real promise in kidney research is one you probably already have sitting in your kitchen right now. It's extra virgin olive oil. And before you think, well, olive oil is good for everything, they say that about everything, let me tell you about a specific study that was published in the journal Nutrients. Researchers at the University of Rome enrolled 40 patients with chronic kidney disease, stages 1 through 4. These were real patients under real medical care with real kidney problems. They asked each one to consume about 40 milliliters of extra virgin olive oil every day, used raw in their food, not heated, not processed, just raw, high-quality extra virgin olive oil. After 9 weeks, here's what happened. Their estimated glomerular filtration rate, which is the gold standard measure of how well your kidneys are filtering, actually improved. Their uric acid levels dropped. Their inflammatory markers went down. Their cholesterol profile got better. And here's the part that genuinely surprised the researchers. When they stopped the olive oil for 2 months, many of those benefits were still there. The effects persisted even after they stopped using it. But wait, and this is the detail most people miss. It wasn't just any olive oil. It was specifically extra virgin olive oil with a high concentration of something called minor polar compounds, particularly hydroxytyrosol and oleocanthal. These are powerful antioxidant and anti-inflammatory molecules that exist only in high-quality extra virgin olive oil. Regular olive oil, refined olive oil, the cheap stuff on the bottom shelf, it doesn't have them, at least not in meaningful amounts. So if you're going to do this, the quality of the oil matters enormously. Why cloves are the missing piece. Alright, so olive oil is impressive on its own, but here's where the story takes a turn that very few people know about. Because cloves, those tiny dried flower buds most people only associate with holiday cooking, contain one of the most powerful natural compounds ever studied for kidney protection. It's called eugenol, and it makes up roughly 75 to 90% of clove oil. Now, the World Health Organization has classified eugenol as generally recognized as safe. That's an important distinction. But what's even more important is what this compound actually does inside your body. And researchers have identified at least 3 distinct mechanisms through which eugenol protects the kidneys. The first one has to do with uric acid. If you've ever dealt with gout, or if your doctor has told you your uric acid levels are too high, this is going to matter to you. A study published in early 2025 found that even a very low dose of clove water extract significantly lowered uric acid levels. How? By blocking an enzyme called xanthine oxidase, which is the main engine that produces uric acid in your body. But it didn't stop there. The clove extract also changed how the kidneys handle uric acid, reducing how much gets reabsorbed back into the blood and increasing how much gets flushed out. That's a dual mechanism: attack the production and boost the elimination. At the same time, the second mechanism is about oxidative stress. Your kidneys are constantly exposed to metabolic waste. That's literally their job, to filter it. But over time, this exposure generates something called free radicals, reactive molecules that damage kidney cells from the inside. And here's what caught the attention of researchers. Eugenol has been shown to be a more potent antioxidant than vitamin E, more potent than the synthetic preservatives used in processed food. It scavenges those free radicals before they can do their damage. And in animal models, clove extract reduced key markers of oxidative damage in kidney tissue, including something called MDA, while boosting the body's own protective enzymes, like glutathione and catalase. And the third mechanism, inflammation. Chronic low-grade inflammation is one of the biggest drivers of kidney disease progression, especially in people over 60. Eugenol has been shown to inhibit cyclooxygenase, the same enzyme that drugs like ibuprofen target, and to reduce the release of inflammatory messengers like TNF-alpha and interleukin-1 beta. In one study on acute kidney injury, clove extract brought creatinine, urea, and electrolyte levels back to near normal ranges. The kidney tissue under the microscope showed clear signs of healing. So think about this for a moment. You have a compound that lowers uric acid, fights oxidative damage, and reduces inflammation. Three of the biggest threats to aging kidneys are all from a spice that cost almost nothing. The synergy secret. Now here's the question nobody seems to be asking. If olive oil helps the kidneys from one angle, and cloves help from a completely different angle, what happens when you combine them? And this is where it gets fascinating. Think of it this way. Extra virgin olive oil works primarily through its polyphenols, hydroxytyrosol and oleocanthal. These compounds reduce systemic inflammation, improve your lipid profile, and support healthy blood flow to the kidneys. That's the macro level, the big picture protection. Now cloves, through eugenol, work at the cellular level. They protect individual kidney cells from oxidative damage. They regulate how uric acid is processed, and they calm down the inflammatory signals that accelerate tissue scarring. That's the micro level. When you combine both, you're essentially building a defense system that works on multiple fronts simultaneously. And there's actually one more layer to this that almost nobody talks about. Eugenol is what scientists call a lipophilic compound. That means it dissolves in fat. And what is olive oil? A healthy fat. So when you mix ground cloves into extra virgin olive oil, the oil may actually improve how well your body absorbs and utilizes the eugenol. It's not just a random pairing. There's a biochemical logic to it. And here's why that matters so much for people over 60. The three biggest drivers of kidney problems in seniors are high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, and chronic inflammation. Olive oil has published evidence supporting its role in all three. Cloves add a layer of direct kidney cell protection that olive oil alone doesn't provide. Together, they address what no single ingredient can address on its own. The silent warning signs. Your kidneys are struggling, but here's something that might change how you think about your own body right now. Because while we've been talking about prevention and protection, there's a question you might be asking yourself. How would I even know if my kidneys are in trouble? And that's a fair question, because most people assume they'd feel something, pain, discomfort, something obvious. But the kidneys don't work that way. So let me walk you through 5 warning signs that most people completely overlook. The first one is persistent fatigue that doesn't improve with rest. Not the kind of tiredness you feel after a busy day. This is deeper. It lingers. It's there when you wake up. And it happens because when your kidneys aren't filtering properly, toxins build up in the blood. Your cells can't function at full capacity, and the result feels like your body is running on half power. The second one is swelling in your ankles, feet, or around your eyes, especially in the morning. When kidneys struggle to balance sodium and fluids, that excess water has to go somewhere, and gravity pulls it down to your lower extremities. If you're noticing your socks leave deeper marks than they used to, or your shoes feel tighter by the afternoon, that's worth paying attention to. Third, and this one surprises a lot of people, is changes in urination, going more frequently at night. Urine that looks foamy, like the foam doesn't settle, or the opposite, going much less than usual. These are all ways your kidneys signal that something isn't right with the filtering process. Fourth is persistent itching that doesn't respond to lotion or cream. This happens because the kidneys aren't removing enough waste from the blood, and those toxins irritate the skin from the inside. Doctors call it uremic pruritus, and it's far more common in early kidney disease than most people realize. And fifth, blood pressure that's suddenly harder to control. If your blood pressure medications seem to be working less well than they used to, or if your numbers creep up despite following your doctor's advice, your kidneys might be the reason. Because the kidneys play a direct role in blood pressure regulation. When they weaken, blood pressure often rises, and when blood pressure rises, it further damages the kidneys. It's a cycle, and breaking that cycle early is everything. Now, I'm not saying any one of these symptoms means you have kidney disease, but if you recognize 2 or 3 of them, especially if you're over 60, a simple blood test and urine test can tell you exactly where you stand, and that knowledge is power, how to use this the right way. Alright, so let's get practical, because knowing about cloves and olive oil is one thing, using them correctly is what actually makes the difference. Here's what I'd suggest based on the research. Take 2 to 3 whole cloves and grind them fresh. You can use a mortar and pestle, a coffee grinder, even the back of a spoon on a cutting board works. The key is to crush them right before you use them. Why? Because grinding is what releases the eugenol. Whole, unbroken cloves sitting in your spice rack aren't giving you much. The moment you crack them open, that's when the active compound becomes available. Now, mix that freshly ground clove into 1 tablespoon of high-quality extra virgin olive oil. And I want to emphasize high quality. Look for olive oil that says extra virgin on the label, ideally cold-pressed, and from a recent harvest year. The darker the bottle, the better, because light degrades those precious polyphenols we talked about. If it tastes slightly peppery or bitter at the back of your throat, that's actually a sign it's rich in oleocanthal. That bitterness is a good thing. You can take this mixture on an empty stomach in the morning, or drizzle it over a salad, or mix it into warm, not hot food. The important thing is that the oil is not heated to high temperatures. High heat destroys both the polyphenols in the olive oil and some of the eugenol in the cloves. Room temperature or slightly warm is ideal. And now here's a safety point that I need to be very clear about. Never, and I mean never, substitute clove essential oil or concentrated clove oil for whole cloves. This is a mistake that could genuinely harm you. Concentrated clove oil, even in small amounts taken orally, has been documented to cause liver and kidney toxicity. There are case reports in medical literature of serious harm from ingesting just a few milliliters of pure clove oil. We're talking about a food-grade spice used in normal culinary amounts. That's safe. Concentrated oils are a completely different story. The mistake's silently destroying your kidneys. Now, while we're talking about protecting your kidneys, there's something else you need to hear. Because even if you start using this combination today, there are common habits that could be undermining your kidneys without you knowing. The biggest one, over-the-counter painkillers, specifically non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. You know them as ibuprofen, naproxen, and similar medications, and I understand why people use them. Joint pain, headaches, muscle aches, they're everywhere, they're easy to get. But here's what most people don't realize. These drugs reduce blood flow to the kidneys, and if you're using them regularly, especially if you're over 60 and already have some natural decline in kidney function, they can push your kidneys from managing to struggling. Medical literature consistently identifies NSAID use as one of the most common preventable causes of kidney injury in older adults. If you rely on these, talk to your doctor about alternatives. The second mistake is chronic mild dehydration, and this is surprisingly common in seniors. As we age, our sense of thirst actually diminishes. You might genuinely not feel thirsty even when your body needs water, and when you're dehydrated, your blood becomes more concentrated, making your kidneys work harder to filter the same amount of waste. Over time, this extra strain adds up. A simple habit of keeping water nearby and sipping throughout the day, even when you don't feel thirsty, can make a measurable difference. Third, and this one is counterintuitive, is eating too much protein. Now, protein is important, especially for maintaining muscle as we age. I'm not saying avoid it, but excessively high protein intake forces the kidneys to work harder to eliminate the nitrogen waste that comes from protein metabolism. If your kidney function is already reduced, even moderately, overloading on protein can accelerate the decline. A balanced amount, tailored to your body weight and kidney status, is what matters. And a quick conversation with your doctor or a dietitian can help you find that sweet spot. And fourth, simply not getting tested. The National Kidney Foundation recommends that everyone over 60 get a kidney screening annually. It's 2 simple tests. A blood test that measures your eGFR, your estimated glomerular filtration rate, and a urine test that checks for albumin, a protein that shouldn't be leaking into your urine if your kidneys are healthy. These tests are quick, inexpensive, and they can catch problems years before any symptoms appear. Years. That's time you can use to make real changes. What most people don't know about aging kidneys. You know, there's one more thing I want to share with you before we move on, because this might be the most important piece of this entire conversation, and it's something that completely reframes how you think about kidney health. Most people assume kidney damage is a one-way street. that once function is lost, it's gone forever, and in many cases that's true for severe damage. But here's what the research is actually showing. In the early and moderate stages, the rate at which kidney function declines is not fixed. It's not inevitable, it can be slowed down dramatically, and in some cases certain markers of kidney health can actually improve. That study with olive oil, those patients saw their filtration rate go up, not just stop falling. Their inflammatory markers went down, and those benefits lasted. So the real message here isn't just about cloves and olive oil. As powerful as that combination appears to be, it's about the idea that small, consistent choices made today can change the trajectory of what happens to your kidneys over the next 5, 10, 15 years. And when you're 60 or 70, 15 years of better kidney function isn't a small thing. That's the difference between independence and dependence, between energy and exhaustion, between living fully and just getting by. And of course, nothing I've shared today replaces your doctor's advice. If you're dealing with a diagnosed kidney condition, or if you're on medications for blood pressure or diabetes, your doctor needs to be part of this conversation. What I've shared gives you a foundation, a starting point, something real to discuss with them at your next visit. What surprises me most is how many people I talk to who had no idea their kidneys were even something they needed to think about, and by the time they do think about it, they've already lost years they could have spent protecting them. If this opened your eyes to something you didn't know before, that in itself is valuable. And if you know someone over 60 who's never had their kidneys checked, this might be the most important thing you could share with them today, because the earlier you catch it, the more you can do about it. And sometimes 2 ingredients you already have at home are a surprisingly powerful place to start.